heard. You don't think that you actually matter. You think that if you leave, it wouldn't matter.
And I think a big part of that loneliness too comes from when you are alone, the type of self talk that you're using, the types of things that you're saying to yourself, and what you're doing with that alone time is so important. If you're constantly, when you are alone, that in that negative headspace and not learning to grow as a person, then when you're feeling alone in a social situation, it makes it so much worse for that.
We'll connect it on a personal level. I remember feeling, if, man, even in my younger days, going to parties and going other places with friends, and that's the most alone I've ever felt.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most disconnected I ever felt. I didn't feel like I had a connection. I didn't feel like anybody saw me, and that loneliness is different when you're, and then you start to separate yourself from everyone else, and then you begin to shut down your social life because of it, which creates more loneliness because you feel like nobody sees you or understands you. Then I felt weird. I was like, what is it about me? Why am I so weird? Why do I? Yeah. And now, as I'm older, I recognize what it was and what was missing. And self growth was missing. I didn't realize what was going on. I didn't realize my thought pattern. I was thinking, and my thoughts didn't know where to go.
Was part of that how you felt with that friend group that made you feel alone?
Yeah.
The only reason I asked that
It
is
was part of what?
because the that loneliness feeling you had was part of that due to the friend group that you had during that time, or like the energy that was being produced by them.
It was a few things. One was my past and the trauma that carried, which I never got a safe space to share or be vulnerable and to share those moments, which means I needed deep connection with people. And I didn't have that. It was all superficial, clubs, women, and things of that nature. And it wasn't something I liked. I didn't like going out. I did not. It was a void I was trying to fill, which every time it just is empty. But yes, it was the friends that I was choosing to be around and trying to hang with, and it just didn't work. It
That
didn't work, and
yeah,
I always end up cutting people off and isolating myself in not so good of a way.
that sounds like you mentally came to a realization before you were ready to actually come to that realization. To me,
What do you mean?
like the your body making you feel lonely kind of was a way of you realizing that in that situation with those people, you were kind of alone in that sense because you didn't really have that
Yeah,
support there.
I would watch them have conversations. I would watch as we went out with our significant others sometimes, and I still felt alone. I watched the way they move and they
Hmm.
spoke, and I was like, something's off.
I've had that too. Yeah.
And I don't know how to step away, and I'm just hanging here. Sometimes we'll go out as single men, and they'll they would hit on women and whatnot, and I would sit in the background like I don't want to be here. I would
Yeah.
go out and just be antisocial.
It
As
it
crazy as that sounds,
no, you're right.
yeah,
It feels inauthentic.
yeah. I would sit in the corner like
Yeah.
I don't like this,
Absolutely.
but I would still go out.
Yeah, because you're like, well, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
That's what we do. Yeah, I completely understand that. I can see that as it sound like that to me seems like good loneliness though, because that's loneliness that leads to growth. But
It eventually
it's
did.
yeah,
Conversations, I felt like an oddball. The way they spoke,
hmm
it didn't fit with me, but I still went out just to do something. I was trying.
social life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a way to. I that's a different kind of loneliness too, because that's you're trying to do stuff to not feel alone.
There's so many avenues
Yeah,
of loneliness.
yeah,
You can
absolutely.
be completely happy, which we'll touch on in the next podcast. You could be completely happy in your own life and how you carry yourself, but you can be lonely when it comes to companionship.
Hmm.
You can be single, building your life up, doing all these things, and having an incredible life, and still be lonely.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Biology. But
Yeah.
yeah. Can you name
There's
a time when you felt that loneliness around a social group?
yeah. I'm someone that struggles with just feeling anxious in general too, and it's something that I have to actively put myself out there in those situations. Uh, that anxiety can project itself in my daily life sometimes as me isolating and feeling lonely in that sense. Usually around larger social groups. When I was in high school, especially, I'd say that was a big one.